Okay, so I have a guest star today, Robert Rodriguez, my father. He was born in 1969, so he has a little background information about the Cold War. Okay, so the first question is, who was to blame for the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Missile crisis was brought on by a few factors. One of the key factors was that Fidel Castro in 1959 took possession of the island of Cuba. It certainly happened over the course of the next few years. Essentially, by the early 60s, there was a very direct correlation that Fidel Castro had with the Soviet Union at that point, which of course we had a Cold War with them as in going into that period. The Castro regimen was literally had taken over all companies and corporations in Cuba, which was a direct violation of obviously of human rights. Many of those companies, including one of the companies that my father worked for, which was a subsidiary of the Hartford Insurance Company. Um, so by not only doing that, but also having the Castro regimen literally killing people that were not that were simply just against the government, but not physically doing anything to overthrow the government. This brought on a tremendous hostility between the United States and the Cuban government and Russia. So, based on those premises, it became necessary for the U.S. to get involved.
Okay, so next question. Since you mentioned that your father is from Cuba, what is your opinion about Castro?
Well, Castro has been in power now for north of 50 years. He is the longest dictator in the modern history globally. He is a dictator. Simply put, some modifications in his agenda have changed over the last decade or two, and it's only because of the amazing amount of poverty in that island. The fact that the Soviet Union does not help that country anymore ever since the early 90s. But he is simply a dictator that his time is slowly running out.
Okay. So next question. Do you think that the war was necessary?
The alliance between the U.S. and the USSR during World War II was not strong enough to cover the two nations, Asia and Europe. The U.S. despised communism, and we need to stay. Essentially, we need to really stay away from such a government.
Okay. And we'll do one more question. So the last question is, why was it even called the Cold War, in your opinion? Like, what does that mean?
Well, it was a conflict between the U.S. and its allies, the Soviet Union. Well, the U.S. and its allies against the Soviet Union, essentially, to see who was going to dominate the global order, so to speak, the world. Cold represents have it how it was not a a shooting war, and the U.S. and the USSR had actually, had never fought each other. So, in essence, it was a Cold War without having to shoot, any artillery or having any airplanes shot down or any warships being in line of fire.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We'll talk later. Ciao.